My son watched an episode of Caillou that doesn't exist. Or so I presume. Bear in mind that my son is 4. However, he hasn't yet learned how to make up fanciful stories. This is further evident by the fact that I pressed him for details on the story, and he told me that he was very firm with his answer to my question. With most children, if I ask, "Did X happen?" they'll just say yes, even if it didn't, and incorporate it into their story. My son was very clear with his details. On the way to daycare this morning, we were joking around about Caillou, as there's a scene involving a subway turn signal that made him laugh. Amidst the laughter, he mentioned how he wished that he could still watch Caillou. I asked him why he couldn't, and he said that he was too scared to watch it anymore. This has happened with other shows he's watched, as he is a sensitive boy, and loud noises, especially from birds, will freak him out. So I asked him what scared him this time, and he said he didn't like the episode where the dad turns red. I had no idea what he meant at that point, so I pressed him for further details. Was he sunburnt? No. My son said that Caillou's dad turns red partway through the episode and stops speaking. At this point, I had wondered if he had seen a YouTube poop or go animate video, since he uses our Kindle and goes on YouTube sometimes. For those of you not in the know, YouTube poops are typically YouTube videos of real shows that are horribly and often obnoxiously edited together. He insists that he saw it on the TV, which meant on cable. PBS, I guess. So at this point, I'm a little weirded out, and I ask what the other characters were doing. He said that Caillou and the mom were normal colored and speaking normally, but whenever the dad was present, he was red and not speaking. I asked him if the dad was doing anything else out of the ordinary. He thought for a moment and said that the only thing that the dad was doing was spitting drool in the toilet, and was not wearing any clothes. He said that the dad's clothes disappeared the moment he turned red. I asked him quite a few more questions about this point, trying to coax more out of him, and he was firm with his, "No, that didn't happen." The last question I was able to ask him before dropping him off at daycare was whether the dad was making any noises at all. He said yes, there was a noise coming out of the dad's feet, but when I asked him to describe it, he said he didn't want to say. So this was either a dream that my son had, or he thought it was real, or was wildly misinterpreting an episode where the dad was actually sick. I can't imagine what else he could have seen. Edit. Still at work, but my wife is home with him trying to get more out of him. He won't share anything else about the experience. Edit number 2. It actually seems that he has issues with this red thing. My wife reminded me that he had a dream a while ago. He was playing outside in the backyard, and my wife was on the porch watching him. Then he turned to her and started talking, but she was red and wouldn't respond, even though he was calling for help from her. She just stared at him and began growing bigger until he woke up screaming. We asked him if the episode of Caillou was like that dream, and he insists that it isn't, and that he was completely awake when he watched it. And that, my little shadows, was my son watched an episode of Caillou that doesn't exist. A Caillou lost episode creepypasta. My final thoughts on the story? Well, look at that, another blast from the past on this channel. I've been meaning to do a review of this story, but I never really got much to the opportunity of, actually reading this. Mostly because of the fact that I didn't know if this story existed or not, or I had other stories that I had to read, and things like that. But but honestly, with this story, that's some pretty freaky stuff. Here's the thing. The actual, concept itself was, well, in a sense, very believable. Especially with what the kid and everything went through throughout the entirety of the episode. Basically with the dad turning red, apparently. Without any clothes or anything, which is a very, very, very weird. One thing I do know is that younger kids tend to have a very active imagination. So the idea of this being an active imagination or whatever from, from this kid or something watching the TV is a possibility, but honestly, the way that this entire thing went out, the way that, the story went and everything. You know, with the kid being completely and utterly sincere that yes, this happened. Yes, that happened. The father turned red. It's very possible that this may have been a false memory. Maybe, but only maybe. It tends to happen sometimes, and it happens to a lot of people, including myself. Basically, what these false memories are memories or scenes or whatever that we may think we have seen or we have heard and we remember it, but then when we actually rewatch the entire thing again, we see that that's not how it was at all. Like, at all. Can't tell you how many times I was completely flabbergasted whenever I sat there and would watch a scene from an old show or a movie, and turns out it was nothing like how I remembered it. And the idea of something like this being that case is a very big possibility, especially given the fact that the kid is literally, like, how old was he? I think he was like 6, maybe? Oh, wrong. 4. I'm wrong. So the idea of the kid having a false memory on that kind of end, or something like that, is a very big believability. Although maybe it might be debatable on that end because he's only 4. I mean, and it's a possibility that, I don't know. Usually these false memories are usually remembered more when you get older. So maybe that might happen with this kid, but I mean, the idea of PBS ever airing an episode of Caillou with the father turning red and creepy and, like, drool coming down, oh god, that's some pretty terrifying things. Like, that's some scary stuff right there. And I have to admit, I actually was pretty creeped out with this Creepypasta. I mean, I wasn't scared of it, although thinking about it, yeah, it is scaring me a little bit. But it wasn't so much the fact that it was a scary story, it was the fact that it was just completely and utterly weird. I mean, the seeing all of that, especially on a kid's show like Caillou that's not meant to have that kind of imagery in it, is extremely unsettling. I mean, it's maybe not nerve-wrackingly terrifying, but it's extremely unnerving. And I can understand why that would be the case, because I've had my own fair share of personal issues with, cartoons. In fact, there was this one episode of Arthur that I remember I wouldn't watch because Arthur would melt on the screen. I'd literally run out of the room and wait until that scene was done with and over because I was afraid of seeing that. I was. Now, as for the storyline itself, it's not very long, which I actually have to commend a little bit. And it actually basically just goes right into the whole thing. It doesn't just, waste time. It gets into the main meat of the story itself without having to, pile on a bunch of unnecessary details. I mean, granted, I'm guilty of this myself, even in my own stories, but still. The fact that the story, actually manages to, incorporate it in such a good way without it being, crazily bad, like without being unnecessary or bad or anything, is good. And, again, also the grammar in the story is top-notch. 100% top-notch. I have to be 100% sincere. It's a top-notch pasta, completely and utterly amazing, and there's literally 211 comments. And, oh my gosh. Okay, let's see. There's like a bunch of comments here that says this. We actually banned the show a couple of years ago. My daughter even says, there's Caillou while browsing Netflix. I'm not allowed to watch that. She thinks it's so bad she makes a retching sound. I think we did our duty. Whiny Caillou made my kid whiny. Basically, it's just a lot of comments specifically talking about people, people who were banned from Caillou. And honestly, after watching some of the other episodes and everything, while I certainly can agree that Caillou is a bit of a whiny brat at times, he's not too much of a brat as we make him out to be. In fact, a grand majority of the episodes, he's not a brat at all. He's just acting like a kid. I mean, going into very realistic situations and the like. I mean, maybe that's just me, and if anybody can point out a couple of extra bratty episodes that I may not know of at this point, I genuinely would like to know. But I have seen the show Caillou, and I can understand why it's hated so much. Wow, this review kind of went a little bit overboard, but continuing on, I can understand why people don't like it, and how it can be a bad influence on kids, but seeing it myself and seeing only like a few episodes that were actually really whiny, I don't think the show itself is really that bad. It's a little annoying at times, but it's really not as bad as everybody makes it out to be. Now, as for the father being red, I have no idea. I mean, unless you manage to come across a Go Animate video with Boris the Teeth Guy or something like that, it's very likely that you will wind up finding some pretty weird stuff. I mean, yeah. Basically, not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. So, yeah. Even with that said, I think I'm pretty much done with this review now. I'm laughing. I'm trying to keep myself from laughing because there's so many comments. Literally, Oh my god. Okay. Anyway. With that said, this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you disagree with it, that's perfectly fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of the story would have to be I'm gonna give this one a 10 out of 10. It's a relatively enjoyable creepypasta. I genuinely liked it a lot, and honestly, it's nice to sit there and go back in the past a little bit and read a nice little spooky story for everyone to enjoy. But even then, what did you guys think about the creepypasta? Did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys not? And also, what would you have done to help make the story a lot better? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. I'm the Shadow Reader. Thanks again for watching today's episode, and if you're brand new here to this channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. And of course, like always, roll the outro, cause I'm out. As your eyes widen, your mouth goes dry with each battered breath. You try to scream, your mind begs to leave, glued to your computer screen. The killers they slash, the tapes burn and crash. The cartridge you bought will be your final haunt. The rituals of hate will seal your fate. The tears you shed will be from the fear-gripping horde-driven nightmarish gore-filled, terrorizing, hateful, burning, violent, rage-inducing, knife-slashing, blood-splattering, silent screams. Only time will tell if you will escape this online hell. Your horror-filled obsessions will come with its own regressions. Your pathetic screams will not be heeded in any way, because your nightmares will come at any day.